Hey, what's going on, folks? See me with the headphones on so I can play the audio. We can both listen, and I don't have a feedback happening whenever the mic is on. But in this video segment, and this is L to the B, if you've been following my information or contact stuff, you would know right now that I'm going through some cervical issues, cervical pains, and this is just something I wanted to do in the moment. I don't know why, but something on my mind because I am about to go meet a potential partner tomorrow that is an empath. And so I want to know, like, will this work? How can it work? Is it possible? All those kind of questions. And I think you deserve to have some answers too. If this is something that you're having difficulty in some of your relationships where you keep finding the partner that's always a narcissist. I've had that happen so many times. And I think there's ways to avoid this, or at least to get some more insight, introspection into yourself and maybe the other, so that when you two pair up, you can actually make something that's sustainable versus like, I don't see anything here. I don't feel the chemistry. It may not be that. It may be something else completely, entirely. Could be just, opposites attract. It's polarities, right? So you learn stuff through a narcissist. That's one of the things that you don't quite understand when you're an empath. You're constantly evaluating what they're doing, what you're doing, but that's the whole growth process. And I'm not saying that you should just jump into narcissist relationships to learn about yourself in life and about the other. This is just going to be more informative, that you get in those relationships to learn more about yourself and to hopefully quit making the same pitfalls that you're making. Anyways, it's going to be a little bit of a watch party, and I apologize if I'm rambling on or I'm a little bit too quick in my speeches. A little bit different at the moment because I guess the stimulants that I took earlier today, and of course the pain that I'm currently experiencing. So let's not waste any time. Let's get into this and learn about what's the deal with what was that? Is that my homegirl? Yeah, that's my homegirl that I'm going to be speaking with tomorrow. That's pretty much can tell she's an empath. I'll explain some reasons why I believe that, but let's look at the videos and maybe we can put some pieces together on why I've assessed that she might be an empath, viable for me, and maybe something long term. We'll see. Let's watch this video. And this is just going to be a short. The next one will be why can two empaths relationships actually work? Can they happen? Can they actually be something that is going to be a reasonable relationship for you? Otherwise, you'll just be continuing to flop and flip out of all these different narcissistic relationships you keep pairing up with. Let's go.
Learn what your attraction mechanisms are, because you're going to see that you are constantly, like I get people who post, I keep attracting, or narcissists love me, or, in other words, there's a detachment as though they weren't responsible for how they keep ending up with narcissists. Well, that's because they're not aware of how their childhood and their past trauma is still affecting them. They haven't healed enough, so they're still placing the responsibility on to the narcissist or somebody else. Learn what your attraction mechanisms are, because you're going to see that you are
Well, that's interesting that he is, because this is a short, of course, but this is interesting that he is making reference to our past unresolved healings, and that's what attracts us to these people. But, I can't disagree with it, but we need more information. So we're going to keep digging on. Yeah, there you go. This is the one I think most people are going to find keeps happening. Why they're sexually attracted to narcissists. That's that chemistry thing that I call the honeymoon phase, part of the honeymoon phase, that you're just, oh yeah, I like the way this person is acting and behaving. It just fits all the same mold of all the other attractive people I've met.
This is a metabolism killer. This is a
Apologize. I don't have this set up for YouTube Premium.
Sad reality is
I can't avoid triggers in this video. It's going to be a pain in the arse for me to dance through the minefield. So if people are worried, they should absolutely switch this video off. It's such a big topic and it's such a big question, and it's gendered, it's sexed. So it's slightly different for men, slightly different for women, which means I have to make generalizations about male sexuality and generalizations about female sexuality. And then people in the comments like, you can't say that about all men, you can't say blah, 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 blah. I'm not like that. Okay, you're not like that, but I'm making a generalization. So what I think as far as sexuality goes and narcissism goes, it's very much like the money issue. It's not really about sexuality, it's about power. Sexuality is a great way of gaining power in a sexually repressed culture. So my claim is, for all of our pornography and for all of our so-called liberalism, we are actually individually very sexually repressed. This is a highly sexually repressed culture. And it needs to be maintained at a degree of sexual repression because of consumer capitalism. So I can only answer this question by going deep into the roots of everything. So consumer capitalism, why do you need to be sexually repressed in a consumer capitalist culture? Because it keeps you buying. So this is the politically incorrect stuff. You personally, you don't have a sexual, so you as the perfect consumer now, let's do it like this. You as the perfect consumer, I'm Moloch. I'm the evil owl who wants humanity to sacrifice its blood and its life fluid so I can continue to burn the flaming fires of hell. I have to enslave you. If you are truly sexually expressed and you have a full, well-rounded sexual identity that you're permitted to own without having to sort of jump at the edges and be like, oh, I can't want this, or I can't want that, or I can't want the other thing, and it's full and it's complete and it's non-traumatized, and the parts of you that were traumatized sexually are resolved, it's way harder to get you to buy stuff. It's way harder. How can I say that? So the experiment is, if you engage in sexual abstinence, if you do quite a lot of meditation, at that time I was doing meditation and a chanting program, and then you go back out into the world. So I was living in Kuala Lumpur city centre, and I would go and meet my friends, and then just driving. This is a Muslim country, and I'm driving to meet them, and the billboards are just dripping with sex. The billboards, the advertising on TV, everything is sex. When you have a little clean and your perceptual filters are reopened, it's everything. Why? Because sex, lust, fear, jealousy, rage, these are all ways of agitating you. And I, as Moloch, must agitate you, because you're not going to buy from me. Why should you fucking buy from me? But if I agitate you and make you feel like you need something, I need my consumers to be repressed, unfulfilled, childish, impulsive, and led by their baser instincts, in a state of despair. So in another way, not to go too far off, I will bring it back to narcissistic abuse, but this is all relevant. If I can take away your capacity to feel love and intimacy and sexual expression with another human being, if I can take away your God or your gods, depending on your faith, if I can take away your faith, your connectedness to source and to the infinite, I have you. As soon as you turn from me to love, to God, to family, and authentic connection with other human beings, I can't hold you. You won't give me anything. You'll buy bread and rice and meat. That's useless. I need you to buy crap because I'm so greedy and my lust is so gaped now for what I want from you. That's not good enough. So in a highly sexually repressed culture, if somebody offers you sex, it's don't focus on the sex, focus on the power. If it wasn't a highly sexually repressed culture, they wouldn't have that power. There'd be no meaning to it.
I want to comment right there with what he's speaking about on the sex component. This was one of the main factors in my narcissistic relationship. Whether we agree or disagree with what he's saying, or it seems a little bit confusing, I will say that just in general, I can relate to what he's talking about. It became a power dynamic in the past relationship that I just got out of, where this person was really found, like, and she even admitted to it, that she loved, or this was what made her feel fulfilled, was whenever she could get me to relinquish my power. I could relinquish the pressure that I had with me, because I was more of a sexually abstinent person. I actually told her that if in the relationship when we're having our sexual moments, that I prefer just to have those moments be on the intimate level, be on a deep, energetic spectrum, versus just, I release my essence, so to speak, and and after something like that happens, I told her, I was like, every time a man, and I'm going to use some terms here, just sorry if this gets a little derogatory, but it is what it is. This is the platform you chose to watch. But like I told her, every single time whenever I, ejaculate or I come or I release, it like most men, all men that I know of, they don't no longer care as much. They're almost like, okay, who are you? Nice to meet you. It's like there's a disassociation that happens, or a disconnect whenever the man releases his sperm. I mean, he's done. I mean, that's like, and like there's even this refractory period that most men are aware of. Some women are too. But it comes from a hormone called, and it's released after that experience, called prolactin. And whenever that prolactin is engaged, it's a suppression mechanism that just reduces all your drive. Most of the time it gives you brain fog. Sometimes you might get this impulse like after sex, like a lot of people will have after sex, they're ready to eat sweets or load up on carbs, and willpower's drained. All those things go out the window when you are unable to retain your sexual energy. And if people don't believe this has been around for thousands of years. Some of it got picked up in one of the books that I highly recommend for success, which is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And that all just kind of goes out the window when you're not utilizing your sexual energy as transformative. There's a whole chapter on it. I believe it's in chapter 11 of the book. Don't quote me on that, but I remember researching that quite extensively. And then it's kind of spawned this whole, like, a lot of YouTube channels are out now, or a lot of videos are out talking about the subject matter of semen retention. I call it energy retention because most people want to focus on the male retaining this energy. The females also release this energy as well. And so it's something that I've seen a video segment where a woman kept and retained her her retention. And so I started nicknaming this energy retention instead of it being like a sexual retention or semen retention or anything like that. Kind of was a little bit singular, restrictive to what both people, humans in general, can experience. So energy retention is what you're after here. And the female that went consistently without doing any kind of forms of masturbation or release, she started experiencing transformative effects. Her skin improved, her clarity improved, you could see it. She even did like a nice little journal entries of just, you could see her day after day, her skin improving, everything else just elevating in her life. And I think that's a real testament that most people think it's just all in the male, but it's for females, it's for all species. So what he's speaking about right here, the power dynamic, it's released in that experience. Excuse me.
So not everybody in a narcissistically abusive relationship is held in via sex, but when they are, it's as an expression of power, as a low access resource. So what is freely available is pornography. What is freely available is sexual symbology. What is extraordinarily rare, and rarer year by year in our culture, is actual sexual connection between two human beings. That's not just my opinion. This is the research. Even young people who are in their sexual prime, are at record numbers for not dating and not having sex. Fewer and fewer sexual partners, fewer and fewer reported sexual incidents reported of actual sexual connection. And when they do, it's very awkward and difficult for them because of the amount of damage that the consumption of symbolic sexuality has done to their brains and to their physiologies. Because if you're consuming a lot of symbolic sexuality, I don't want to keep saying the word prawn because it might do something to the YouTube algorithm. It really changes you. So, and people watching this might be like, well, I'm 60, so none of this has affected me. No, you're wrong. It's all affecting you. This is the water we swim in. So like whatever I say about millennials or Gen Z or whatever, because of my social media usage, I also have a millennial and a Gen Z perspective on life. None of us are above it. None of us move past it. So what was your original question? I wanted to establish the sexuality part, but you phrased it a certain way.
Why am I attracted sexually to narcissists?
Why am I attracted sexually to narcissists? So the broader thing that might be happening is because of the indoctrination, you can only accept sexual contact from somebody who's using it in a weaponized way against you?
That was a very good assessment. I think that just clued in a lot of people that the narcissist is using the sexual component as a weapon. I don't think we all realize that's what's been going on, and that's your trigger mechanism. They know that they deploy this mechanism, this strategy, to luring in you as an empath or whatever you may be into this relationship. They're using that sexual component as a power mechanism, and so they know how to wield that weapon so that you are pulled in whatever vices it is, but they're already masters at it. It's almost like somebody at the shooting range, and they shot a few times, but they found a natural affinity to using this gun. Like, this is going to be the one thing that they actually attracted to using, and they find it to be, I don't want to say it's their coping mechanism, but it is definitely their life force for generating whatever experience that they're having. And it may not be very conducive. Let's be honest. Narcissists run their course, and then they're ruined as well at this expense. Because at some level, if the empath wakes up, that's a lot of damage, even against the narcissist. So there's damage on both ends that are received during these experiences.
Who's using it, who's withholding it as a reward and punishment system. Have sex with me, that's the reward. Don't do as I say, I'll have sex with somebody else. Which is, this is what they do. It's a punishment reward system. It's there to exploit and to leverage. So it's disconnected from the expression of intimacy, vulnerability, and love with another human being, which is what we really crave.
Because the world rejected you create.
Beyond everything. Like, every pornographic fantasy or obscenity, which is all valid, it's all fine. I'm not saying don't have that, don't do it. But it's all downstream of an impulse to connect. And the best of your pornography, there's no way YouTube's going to be tricked by that. Now I like saying pornography. I'm just saying porn with prawns in it, making sexy poses. All of that is downstream of the desire to connect and the desire to be with another person, because the best sex that you can have is with somebody that you're truly connected with. The best orgasms, the most rewarding sex you can have, and all of that other stuff. I'm not saying get rid of it, because I do think it's an essential part of human sexuality. Human sexuality is by its nature taboo breaking. Freud, this finger-wagging patriarch that people think he is, but really wasn't. He just wasn't very smart with the way he presented ideas. He was very progressive on this point. He said, so-called sexual perversion is so ubiquitous and so ever-present in everybody that it shouldn't be called perversion. It should just be called human sexuality. That's the essential nature of it. Okay, fine. All of your kinks, all of the fun, special things that you like to do, all of these little games and whatever, there are certain scenarios and things that really do something for you. Fine, good, but all of that is downstream of connection and should be taking place within a safe, loving space of acceptance of another human being, where there is nothing that then is taboo, because you have complete connectivity. When that's eradicated, evil people who know that you're full of craving, who know that you're full of lust and loneliness, can leverage that against you. By the way, in both male and female sexuality and male and female craving for sex now, including the propagation of paraphilias and the propagation of sort of perversions, as it were, I personally think is massively down to loneliness. A tremendous amount of what we experience in a moment to moment of I'm just full of lust, I just really want to have sex, and I want to do this, and I want to do this, and I want to do this. I claim you wouldn't feel that if you weren't lonely. What is not lonely? Connected. If you're actually authentically connected with another human being, a lot of that stuff would dial down. It would just calm down. And
I'm going to have to disagree with what he's saying there. I've been less lonely in some ways and still had strong sexual components, meaning that I feel very fulfilled in a relationship. I feel that there's a connectivity, we're bonded, we're all good. And this could also be very subjective in what I'm just presenting here. But sometimes that, even in that space alone, can be the strongest sexual drive and kinkiness and stuff that I have. It's actually the opposite. And maybe this is different for different people, but it's actually opposite. Whenever I'm not feeling connected with this person, or there's just something unraveled, like I just feel discarded, or I'm left to my own device, my own vice, whatever it is, I do not ramp up all of these sexual kinkiness things that I want to engage with my partner, because now I've recognized, or I'm aware that this is not a safe haven. It's actually the safe haven that should encourage all of those kinkiness vibrations that to manifest to the surface. And you start to figure out, like, well, this person might be into this, might be into that, instead of this, like, and there, don't get me wrong, there's going to be these drives to do that even with the person that you don't have a safe haven with. I do want to contradict myself a little bit there. However, there is a much stronger appeal, stronger level of this encouragement in those spaces whenever you have a safe place to express those in, and you can feel like you can be vulnerable, and there's not going to be a lot of judging. I think that's where the better gratifications come in. You just have to temper those. But yeah, I can see it, like where things are going so well, things are going so good, you almost can't get enough, and it's like, let's go day after day after day after day. And then that becomes the lust component. He's saying it'll just go away, but that actually can be a power indicator at the beginning. And then you have to crawl yourself back to finding your own sovereignty apart from having too much lust in those sexual relationships.
Dial down, and you wouldn't be so. This is neurosis. This is
Exactly.
this mad cravingness. So the sexual attraction to narcissists, I think, is based on the imprint that we've got that sex is rare, shouldn't be freely offered. It shouldn't be offered within intimacy. We fear now to connect sex with intimacy because we fear losing ourselves. So what does the narcissist provide? They provide all of the pornography, all of the perversion, and none of the intimacy. So in a weird masochistic way, we feel now, in our traumatized state, safer being sexually attracted to sort of a robot human who really is looking to extract something from us than being connected to an authentic human who wants to be vulnerable and want you to be vulnerable and authentically connect, with the sexual stuff being downstream of that. So what I'm saying is it's extremely common for people to be excessively sexually attracted to narcissists precisely because they are abusive with the sexual contact. That's what we think is normal now.
Can you tell me more?
Okay, I agree. That it's that weaponizing of sexual energy that they're using it abusively. So they're tapping that center and letting that be the main source of your attraction versus it being intimacy and getting to know the person. And they may even use some of those components. They may be able to make you feel like you're connected. Like, let's be honest, we like being we like other people to be soundboards, because whenever we're speaking more often, that is when we feel like we're most appreciated, most loved. I can't stress this enough. In my first relationship, which my main relationship, which I felt was a narcissist, and as my baby mother, she exploited those components the most. She was very, and I'll give you an example. So she would have all these clients, and one of her favorite things that she disclosed to me, she's like, nobody really knows me. And I thought this was a very interesting statement. I said, well, why do you say that? She's like, oh yeah. She's like, everybody, she goes, ask somebody what they really know about me. And I was like, okay. She goes, I listen to everybody else's problems, issues, whatever, but nobody ever really knows me or asks me what's going on in my world. So here's the thing. She was always held back from giving any of those things. Even me, I was with her for 9 years and really tried to peel back some of those boxes, walls, or whatnot, and was unable to. And she realized that. She even admitted to that lack of vulnerability. And so that, again, that is like a main undertone. Is vulnerability is going to be your grading scale on how you can determine if this is going to be a good partner pairing or whatever. Is how much are they into the vulnerability scale versus non-vulnerability scale. And you're going to have to get good at you're going to have to get good with that skill of assessing people's vulnerabilities, or assessing how well people are able to be free with you, and what that all looks like. Because I mentioned in the past video about vulnerability, and it doesn't always mean them just giving you personal information that they're already been accustomed to releasing, not just to you but other people. They've already gotten comfortable with those what I call false doors, false keys to doors. But those rooms were already open. You could put that key, you thought you had a key that you unlocked something to personal information about them, just to get more vulnerable and connected. But what you didn't realize, those doors were already open. Somebody already had those doors open for you.
More about the narcissist's sexuality.
The narcissist, we forget that they also are people pleasers, codependents, and fawn responders. Everybody is saying they're seeing the narcissist as a predator, as a bully, as an aggressor. Yes, they are. But how do they continue to do their bullying and their aggressing? Is through being charming and through giving. So what will they give you? They will give you lust. What will they give you? Very often sexual gratification. So they're actually making a deliberate effort to be sexy. They're making a deliberate effort to be sexually attractive because it's a form of power. And then when you're with them, they will work sometimes, often, depending on the type of narcissism you're dealing with, to be as sexually gratifying as possible. Why? Because they're so kind? Because they want to connect with you so deeply? No, because it's power. If I can give you orgasms like you've never had before in your life.
Here are the top 3 dirty self-defense moves. Number 1, throwing dirt in your opponent's eyes. Throwing an object into your opponent's eyes.
Unless I am also committing to being with you as a human being in perpetuity, it's traumatic. It's traumatic. So let's say I take a girl and I'm extremely charming. I'm very direct, but I'm also polite and I'm respectful and I'm boundaries and this, and I'm really giving her a special experience. And then I take her to the bedroom and I make sure that I learn over a period of 3 months every sexual fantasy, every sexual pornography perversion she has in her mind, her role plays, her fantasies, everything. And I wire to that. And then I learn her body and I give her the strongest orgasm she's ever had. But I'm also meta-communicating something to her that she has to accept through cultural indoctrination, which is, I'm not going to be with you for the rest of your life. I'm not going to be with you for the rest of your life. And by the way, you can't ask me to. Why can't she ask me to? Because it's against our cultural paradigms. You can't meet a guy in a bar or in a hotel here, say I met the girl here, and within 3 months be saying to him, hey, we've had sex. You have to commit to me for the rest of your life. You can't. And I'm not making judgments. I'm not saying you should be able to, or you shouldn't, or secretly like this is a message that we all need to return to our Abrahamic roots. I'm not saying that because I don't believe it. I'm simply pointing out the hypocrisy that we live with. A boy can't ask a girl to do that after 3 months, and a girl can't ask a boy to do that after 3 months. Why not? It's not cool. You're being too clingy. That's just not the culture we live with. Everybody should just enjoy and consume and have multiple partners. And I'm not condemning it. I'm just pointing it out. And my point is that's traumatic for her or for him. Say I'm a girl and I do that to a guy. So I'm a guy. I do this to this girl. She's never had orgasms like that before in her life. This could be the peak sexual pleasure she ever knows in this lifetime. And I'm also communicating this could be over inside of a month. Why? The vibe is off. It is what it is. Or whatever bullshit people say to each other. Like, I'm just not feeling it anymore. I'm only saying it's traumatic. And we play this game where we say it's different for men and for women. Women will accept that a man is a player and that he's sexually active and she wants an alpha male who's been with 50 women and everything. This is ideology. This is not real. Like, okay, we can maybe present the evolutionary biology argument for why it's more traumatic that issue of how many sexual partners you've had, just as one thing. Maybe it's more traumatic and more threatening for a man than for a woman, but you're not going to tell me that's not traumatic for her. Listen, babe, so here she is. Listen, I love you. See what I did for you last night that you really liked, that made your eyes roll back in your head and you made this weird noise like a yak being sacrificed? That you were really embarrassed about afterwards, and then we joked about it and I comforted you and I said, it's okay, babe, blah, 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 and I kissed you on the forehead, and then you fell asleep in my arms. That's nice, right? Yeah, it's beautiful. You're the 60th girl I did that with. That thing I did with my tongue, I did that 60 other girls. This thing where you went, you did it 60 times with 60 other women. She is a woman who's a baby-making machine who just wants alpha males. She should be like, oh my God, he's so masculine and he's been with so many women. And no, man, that shit hurts. That hurts. It's got to hurt. What are we communicating to each other? Like, what is this producing? It's just a massive amount of traumatized people who are trying to hold down their trauma and be cool. Because I've got to be a pimp, I've got to be a gangster, and she's got to be a boss bitch, and we're all players, and nobody's connected because that's too clingy. I'm sorry, this is deranged. It's completely inhuman. We're being told that acting like a narcissistic psychopath who is mentally ill, possibly as a result of a genetic mutation. The psychopathy could be genetic. And we're saying...
I'll get into that on a separate video. There is a genetic component that I feel like he's tapping right into. And this is why I think it's one of those things that fall into the personality dimensions of disorders where it's kind of hard to resolve any kind of personality disorder. Mainly like borderline personality disorder or some other things. But there's also heavy research whenever I was digging into this in my first relationship, where there is a brain cortex region of the where it's not fully developed. Some of this can happen in early development whenever the child's born. Maybe there's some trauma. Maybe there's some. It's really common in premature births where the child wasn't fully developed prior to being born, and when that happens, usually this cortex doesn't develop correctly enough, and it just happens to be one of those main areas that is encourages empathy or a deep emotional intelligence. And so when that area gets fractured a little bit, it becomes a biological dispositional component that makes it harder for these people to actually cross those borders of true intimacy. And so how do you fault somebody for being really who they are? You know, something that I thought was very interesting when I learned a little bit about the Calvinism is that people are born predestined. And so that kind of gives you some ideas on, well, is everybody supposed to live this ideal society where everybody lives up to the society, the culture's morals and ethics of that era? And you know, it may not be, it does not mean it's fully representational of everyone's human experience or their biological dispositions. So you mean to tell me there's just some people that are going to fall on one side of the adherence line versus the other? It could be, according to Calvinism, that's one reason why it encourages a little bit more of a deeper appreciation and love for all, because they say, oh, you're evil? Hey, well, this is what you are. You're evil. Oh, you're an angel? Great. Nice to meet you. You know, all of you accepted because this is how you were born. This is how you were brought into this dualistic or potentiality difference. Instead of it being one size fits all as a human being and you should be able to work it out and just fit into whatever we've said that for you to be correct here in this culture or society or ideology or religion or what have you, it's, you know, you're actually acceptable for who you are, and that's okay. And welcome to the club. Well, we're here with a bigger, greater love, which is just being able to accept the ways of others, but also acknowledging our own first.
To everybody, act like a mentally ill genetic mutant who feels no connectivity to anybody else, because that's normal. And when you're human and you actually want to stay with one person and you don't want a partner who did that special thing that he did to you last night with 60 other women, you're a freak. You're needy. You've got an anxious attachment style. You should see a therapist. Come on, like, people should be robust. We should be resilient. Like, if you're an adult and you're over the age of 30, the person you get with has probably had other sexual partners. You're going to have to find a way to live with it.
That's right.
But this is not that. This is on some next level wild, like, consumer capitalist stuff. So the narcissistic psychopathy, I'm claiming, is baked into the cake. It's baked into the cake. It's a feature, not a bug at this point. You come to me, or not you.
So I see his perspective on this. I'm not going to waste any more time with this video. I'm sure he's got other good stuff to present, but like you said, it's baked into the culture. I've always said that, especially in this capitalistic culture we grew up in, this representative democracy, it's all based around narcissism. You got to think the philosophy of, well, you got to pick yourself up by your own bootstraps. You got to work hard to get what you want in this country, and that makes you a more solid, sovereign individual. And that whole philosophy, that paradigm here in this country, where everybody has to just be in it and out for themselves, is what's actually ruining us. You know, all of the elites, all of the people that you aspire to be, and you magically see these corporations spring up, Microsoft and Amazon, and they cannot function without having connected parts. That just lets you know in general that togetherness works and separatism doesn't. You'd think Amazon would have been the powerhouse that it is today if it didn't employ the use of working with other people. Maybe they did it through various means that were individualistic, meaning that we only want the best here. We strive to make people work towards those goals, to achieve those methods to get where they want to get. But I'll be honest with you, I don't really like that. I really would like a company or culture that supported the growth of somebody, and that it returned itself back to the main host of the company. But unfortunately, that's not just how it works. But in general, you cannot really go anywhere and see one of these powerhouse entities operating based on it's just me. I did it all, and I'm still doing it all, and that's how I'm able to tell you all about it. No, it doesn't work. Can you pick up and hold a house by yourself? You can't take a big structure and put it under the weight of your arms with too much weight and say, ow, I'm able to do it. And even if you manage to be able to do that physical feat, what else would you be able to do beyond that? You would not have your capability and functions in life. My ex, who I'm talking about as being a narcissist, still did something for me today by spraying some nice little spray on my back to help me get better to where I could actually move and cooperate and function after my cervical problem. So how much of a narcissist is she? Has she resolved her stuff? She's gone through a lot just trying to get this piece so that she can fit into the culture puzzle. And I don't know if that's right or wrong, but maybe this is part of her growth. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to accept her, even who she is, whether it is still in a higher functioning narcissism or not. So just hope people understand what that is. So let's see what else we got going on here. This one might be a pretty good one to watch. What happens if two empaths fall in love? And after this, we'll watch this, and then we'll probably just call it quits here because I got this text message I'd like to get back to with Kimmy.
Can there ever actually be too much of a good thing? The question has floated around for many years, with equally as many answers. But maybe a real-world example would help make things a bit clearer. What about empath relationships, for example? Can two kind and caring people be too similar for their relationship to succeed? Or is this actually the perfect blueprint for a healthy relationship? We think we finally cracked the code to this age-old riddle, but we'll let you be the judge. Is this the perfect relationship? Stick around until the end and decide for yourself. Number 10, expect a lot of pets. One of the best parts of a relationship between two empaths is their outward way of expressing love. Most human beings, especially when they've experienced loss and heartbreak, tend to close off and become less trusting as they age. But the opposite is true for empaths. A relationship between two empaths is bound to be filled with pets, as both parties love to express their care and affection publicly. Pet allergies or a dislike of animals is a very common reason why many couples break up. But if you are dating another empath, you should be ready to welcome some new fuzzy creatures into your life. In fact, the only problem is this kind of relationship is usually centered around the pets getting along with one another. Empaths in love tend to show that love not just with their partner, but also with the critters and creatures around them too. Number 9, the pursuit of shared happiness. The idea of independence in a relationship between two empaths is a little different than your standard relationship, and that's the same for happiness too. While most relationships go through periods where one partner is happier than the other, that isn't as common for empathetic relationships. The idea of being happy while your partner mopes around the house isn't all that enticing to empaths, who are easily influenced by those around them, and they will instead focus on cheering up their significant other. If you consider yourself to be a pretty reserved and closed-off person, you probably wouldn't survive for very long in a relationship that demands mutual happiness as much. But empaths wouldn't have it any other way. They want to move forward together and don't want to succeed in spite of their partner. They really do have a leave no one behind mentality when it comes to the people they love. Number 8, intimacy is hugely important. Most people value physical and emotional intimacy in a relationship, but empaths take things to a whole other level. In general, empaths value physical intimacy a lot, and their sex lives tend to be pretty active as a result.
Remember what I said earlier in the video? When you're intimate and you have all the vulnerability exchange and you have a safe haven, the sexual component goes way up. The sexual interactions go way up, because now it's like you have a safe place. This is what I was talking about before. I didn't even know. So this is all videos that I haven't seen. So you're experiencing them how I'm experiencing them for the first time. If you're watching this for the first time, and you're seeing my reaction to it, and like totally, like that's what it is. I told you. Like I feel much more sexually funville when there's an empathetic exchange happening between two people. And so this is what we're trying to get towards people that are finding themselves in narcissistic relationships consistently and saying, well, I'm just not attracted to somebody more emotional or somebody that's just not, that's more empathetic. And so you might actually find that that frequency or that tonality is way more improved. It just maybe takes a little bit longer. Maybe it takes some time. But you have to work on those components and figure out what that means and how that works for you.
Empaths are people who pride themselves in building spiritual and emotional connections with one another, and the culmination of that work pays off in the bedroom. Empaths want to be present for the needs of their partner, and they also want to make sure that their partner is happy and content at all times. Two empaths entering into a relationship with one another will focus heavily on their ability to be there for the other person, and this ability to anticipate needs and interpret emotions helps them to feel closer to each other quicker than the typical couple. Number 7, things may come up sooner than expected. While empaths may move quickly in their relationship, that speed may not always be welcome for both parties. Empathetic relationships tend to be tricky in the beginning because of this, especially when it comes to conflict. A problem that empaths frequently encounter in their relationships is their ability to intuit information working against them instead of for them. For an empath, they may see your issues or struggles very quickly and ask you about them even though you might not be comfortable talking about them. Empaths don't do this as a way to prod or upset you, but because they don't realize what they're asking or bringing up is a touchy subject. As a result of this ability, their relationships with one another tend to result in some pain early on, but creating some boundaries and clearly establishing them has proved to help quite a bit with that. Number 6, there will be a quiet peace between them. Empaths are very loving people, but they also feel everything a bit deeper than the rest of us. As a result, an empath may need more time to themselves than a regular adult, and they will sometimes retreat to a quiet place to catch their breath. In a relationship, these breaths are a bit harder to achieve, especially when two people live together. So a quiet sort of peace needs to be achieved relatively early on. Partners who are both empaths may read books together, or do independent activities in the same room so that they can recharge their batteries a bit. People who aren't as familiar with empaths may find this strange, but to an empath, this is an easy way to spend time together before you're ready to truly hang out later. By the way, make sure to subscribe if you've learned something new today. Number 5, nature will play a big role in their relationship. If you aren't a person who likes to spend time outdoors, you probably wouldn't last long in an empath relationship. These couples get a lot out of nature, and use it for a ton of different reasons. For one, nature just makes sense to an empath, who tends to get a lot of peace and quiet out of spending time outdoors. Much like with pets, empaths love plants and other living creatures, and also feel a deeper connection to nature than the rest of us. This all boils down to a lot of trips to camp or hike outdoors, and empaths wouldn't have it any other way. Number 4, bad days usually mean together days. We all have bad days, and sometimes all we really need during those times is space. While this can definitely still be the case for two empaths, chances are they are going to want to get through things together. Empaths have a hard time hiding their emotions, which is why they can seem bubbly one second and pretty drained the next. Empaths aren't trying to hide their feelings, and they especially aren't trying to keep them from their partner. If an empath is having a bad day, their empath partner is too, and they will almost always choose to get through things together. The frustration in loving an empath here is that bad stretches can last longer as a result of both of you dwelling on it. And it can still sometimes be a lot of effort trying to shake the both of you out of a particularly bad bunch of days. Number 3, there isn't a lot of lying or cheating. Empaths tend to be drawn to one another, and a big reason for that is just how much easier it is. Empaths have a profound knowledge of pain, and they know how much it can hurt. As a result, empaths are usually pretty considerate to their loved ones and partners, and they don't often lie or cheat.
So this is one of the main things that happened with the person I'm getting ready to start to reconnect with earlier, that I mentioned earlier. So whenever I had to kind of break things off with her because I found somebody else, I wasn't in a relationship. And I actually was very upfront about how I was feeling. I said, I'm very connected with you, probably more so. I'm feeling deep emotions. And since you're not feeling those things out of respect, and kind of like my boundary I didn't know I was setting at the time, I was like, I'm just going to take some steps back. I'm going to put some space between us. And it's funny, I never really disclosed that kind of thing to most of my partners. But with her, I definitely did. I could see that it would be received well. And so it was kind of like she wanted to keep pulling me out. And then I kept going through all these kinds of emotional damages because here I am with somebody that I really am into, but they're not necessarily into me like that. And the funny thing is that she was. And then I think even with the separation or the space that kept getting put between us, all of a sudden she was like, yeah, I do want to spend time with you. Yeah, well, I'm ready to take these steps, but it was already too late because usually when those things happen, I find partners relatively fast or quick. And so I went out one night, boom, found the other person. That was it. And that's what kind of severed things. But I was upfront and I disclosed to her. And that's probably like when I was in my single life early on and when I was in the military. I was a single person because I knew that having relationships with that kind of dynamic going on was earth-shattering, relationship ruining. I'd seen too many people that had kids and had bad outcomes with their partners, and it just wasn't well. And so my main thing, I had probably like three or four girlfriends at a time that I always was freaking with, and I made sure every one of them knew that, hey, this is just me, this is how I am. I'm sorry, but I do not. I form multiple partners. I don't have a relationship really. So I'm just being upfront and honest. If that's okay with you, yeah, I just want to be respectful. If you're cool with it, good. And honestly, I had more fun during those times because I was just I just told people all the time. I was like, hey, if you want to have some of the best, experiences with other people, and that's who you are, just disclose to them. Be upfront and honest. So I'd already established that early on in my young adult life.
Empaths are very honest too, so the level of trust in this type of relationship is also off the charts. You should have plenty of faith in your partner here. And if they have a problem, they will definitely let you know. It makes for a very different environment than the normal dating pool. And it is also why empaths tend to date within their ranks. Number 2, dating each other can be very validating. Empaths often share similar traits. And this can be an incredible advantage to dating another empath. When an empath falls in love, for example, that is a much bigger risk than it is for the standard person. Empaths can carry a bit more baggage because they fall in love quickly. And they fall in love hard. Despite these strong feelings, an empath doesn't usually get it in return, which is why dating another empath can be extremely validating for them. They don't have to worry as much about what makes them different, and can celebrate the things that make them unique instead of trying to hide them. On the flip side, even the pitfalls of dating an empath are easier when you both understand the situation. Things that break up most couples can actually strengthen an empath's love, leading to a really fulfilling and deep connection. Number 1, the relationship can be freeing. When you are free to be with a person who truly understands you, the resulting feeling can truly be out of this world. Yes. Empaths often have to adjust their personality to avoid overwhelming others, but they can now be themselves for the majority of the time. As a result of their passion and optimism, empaths usually move things along at a steady clip, forming a lifelong bond in just a couple of months in many cases.
I'll give a perfect example for that. This previous girl that I'm here to talk to, Kimmy, when we would go out downtown, we would be so free in our expression so much. It was like, even that was one of the things that she would tell me, that she just loved our moments of this, loved our moments of that. And one of them stands out in my mind is like, we would just like, when we were out drinking or like downtown over a club or a bar, sometimes the music would be playing outside, and I would be outside and I'd just start doing some street dances. And she would get out there and she'd start dancing. So you see the vulnerability factor is way diminished. It's not like this, like, oh, I feel like I don't know if I'm getting ready to be exposed. No, you actually feel more able to come out of your shell if that's what you're dealing with.
This kind of relationship is often freeing for the empath, as it feels like things suddenly make sense for them. They are free to love in the way they want without feeling like they are embarrassing themselves or making a scene, which is a great sight to behold. Empathic relationships may have their issues, just like every relationship, but they also have a tremendous foundation of love and passion to start with, making them one of the most interesting couple types in the world. And if you like this video, then check out...
That's pretty cool. So that's pretty much all I'm going to have on this segment, because I don't like to make the videos too long. But I think you can see right there what happens if two empaths fall in love. The question is, can two empaths work? And the answer to that is very much so. And probably more so than ever you've ever had before if you've been dealing with a narcissist. And it used to be a nice little old theory that I would carry around, that no two partners are going to be fully empathic. One will diametrically be opposed to the other. Well, I'm saying too many cute words, but one will be more oriented towards narcissism while the other is more oriented towards empath. And so that dynamic will always kind of play out in the relationship. It's it's kind of like a power dynamic. But what I will say to this is that after looking at this video and kind of my overall assessment of relationships that I've had, it's very much possible for two to be the two empaths, and where there might be some slight spectrum differences across this empath narcissism. I think everybody will find their harmony in that, and have the sympathy for each and every one another in that relationship. So guys, I hope you found this very informative, helpful, fun, and enjoying, and I will see you on the next video. I'm going to play around with some other stuff. Probably about time for my kid to get up from her nap, and see exactly what is it that this lady that I find very enjoyable, what she wants to do, maybe what she sent me as text. You guys have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching the show. I will talk to you on the next video. And always, thank you for liking, subscribing, and sending me comments. I enjoy anything that I receive from other people that have anything to say on this subject. Don't be afraid. If you're an empath, you certainly shouldn't be afraid. The anonymity of your profile being on YouTube should allow you some room to make some comments, for me to address them. And now, as I'm putting my email address out there, you can send me something privately. You don't even have to be that displayed if you don't want. But send me something in an email. I think my email address, because it's a little bit different from my channel name, is L to the B real. And so it's LTOBEREAL @gmail.com. I think that's what it is. If not, there's another comment where I posted somewhere else where my thing is, and I'll try to update some other stuff. Thanks again. Have a great day.